So guys, thank you for the last AMA of May. Really glad that for all of you that have come and spent some time with me and listened to what we've had to say about ABM and myself and Robert and Eliza from Ocean. And unfortunately, today's speaker from Rollworks is unable to make it. There's just too much of a time difference between us and I think it's the west coast of the state. So that's why Jill isn't here. But I am going to replay Tuesday's content, which was how to run and plan a one-to-many ABM strategy. And the reason that we love this strategy by us so much is because it's more advanced and targeted than demand gen. So with demand gen, you know, you're using persona-based messaging, building brand. So, you know, you're trying to drive your brand forward, get some traction in the market, get people to recognize who you are as a company, land your messaging with your personas, drive them into your funnels and gated content and all of that stuff. And, you know, some people saying they do ungated content, some people saying they do gated content, some do a mixture of both. And, you know, you have to put some sort of value to the content that you're producing, like annual reports that take a lot of effort to produce. I would definitely gate. But the things that we have, personas, ABM strategy, sales enablement strategy, yeah, we put a lot of effort into that content. But on the whole, I don't accept that people that are downloading those types of assets actually are leads. They're people that are researching. They may or may not be looking for a provider. They may be looking for, you know, how they implement it in-house. And so with that kind of mindset, I just thought I would share the ABM strategy we put forward to a company that we were working with recently. And let me bring that to the table. Okay, so if you try and stay with me and try not to get caught up in the side panel, I'll just whiz you through what we're going to go through. So we'll talk about targeting and account identification, what goes into researching accounts, how that impacts your approach or our approach, what the tech enables, what an initial ABM strategy should look like, kind of content, assets, KPIs, how and what you will agree on how you're going to work together is really important, and who has the responsibility for what timelines. Now, just to make sure from my end that I don't lose sorry, just bear with me. I don't lose voice. I'm just going to see if I can put a headset in to try and ensure that that doesn't happen. I thought I had one. Cool. Sorry about that. Thanks for just bearing with me a second. I don't want to jinx myself, but we definitely want to make sure that I've got this one recorded. Don't want to do that twice in 1 week. Okay, let me just come back to the meeting. Can you just let me know that you can hear me still? Oh, perfect. Thank you for that. Perfect. All right, let me get back into it then. Okay, so just to pick up where we went. So topics of discussion, targeting, account identification, what goes into researching accounts, what that impacts, what the tech enables. Let's pick up from there. So looking at how we approached it, this particular company, they were targeting billion-dollar companies in the northern US and a high proportion of those companies were listed on the Fortune 1000, which is the top 1000 billion-dollar companies in the US. And so what we did is we targeted the business verticals and industries on the Fortune 1000. So we had to identify the accounts that would be relevant there. We then used Ocean.io, and Ocean is a B2B tool that enables you to build lists of companies, and you can build lists around your ICP. So that's great. It will go and find all of the websites of the companies that match your ICP, and then you can start to evaluate the companies that are returns to make sure that they are a good fit for you, and you can push that data into your CRM. The other way that Ocean works, which we like, which then builds into what I think is perpetual ABM, is that for every single account you close is a close one deal in your CRM. As soon as you close a deal, Ocean can go and build you a list of lookalikes that match those close one companies. So that means over time, the more of one type of company you close, the tighter that list gets, the easier it should be to go forward and close more deals, because you'll have a really strong understanding of your company and their problems. And, you know, that probably leans into verticals or industries. Then we used Rollworks, and Rollworks has the ability to allow you to target your account. So to build targeted account lists and upload that information, and you can run ads and air cover into those people. We also liked it because if you're working out of HubSpot, you can dynamically feed your contact records into Rollworks from the CRM, and it will actually target those people within the Bombora networks or Rollworks' own networks of community websites. So just for example, if you were selling to the chief information officer and he had signed up using his work email to chiefinformationofficeronline.com or something like that, and that was in the network, they would be able to serve your ads to that individual on that website. So it gets really, really like hyper targeted, and you're not spuriously wasting your ad budget. So that becomes a really, really tight part of the process. And I'll lean into this a little bit later. And then obviously you have logos, and logos could just be companies that you really think would look well on your website to have. They could still provide good value, but at the same time, they might not provide good financial value, but they would provide good brand association value. And so that was how we started to identify the accounts and the targeting at the top level. We then dove into this a little bit deeper. And so because the Fortune 1000 is a clearly identified list of companies or target accounts, it was easy to work with that. And in Ocean, obviously I mentioned there was targeting through outbound search, so ICP matching. And so we had to basically run through a lot of checks, which was what was the industry they were in, and was that a relevant industry for the client? Were these companies US headquarters? Were they private or publicly owned? Did they have an ESG team, and what was the size of that team? Who were the leaders in ESG? And not only who were just the leaders, but were they the right ESG leaders? So ESG being quite a broad subject, some of those people wouldn't be the right people. Were there existing ESG or sustainability reports in the company's annual reports? Was there an ESG or sustainability committee at that company? Was ESG covered in the risk section on that company annual report? Could the company's team download the report as a PDF? They wanted to identify their 10K filings, which is the filings that government filings of the company. And then could we identify members of the buying committee? And then what could we learn about each committee member? So there was a lot of research done up front. And the problem is with ESG, like many sort of job titles, we only could find around 79 standardized job titles, which really didn't help. And there's a lot of people that are leader of ESG plus sustainability plus this X, Y, and Z. And so that was really difficult to target. With Rollworks, we couldn't lean into all of it. So we could go by industry. The ESG team we couldn't do, but that was why it became really clever with some of the toolkit. And I'm going to lean into that a bit later on. But right now, the Rollworks ABM demand capture piece enabled two things. So we could build targeted account lists, which was the easy piece. But with the Bombora and Rollworks company surge data, we could also understand companies that matched the ICP but hadn't been targeted or identified. So that meant we could capture companies we didn't know with high intent that were searching hard around the conversion-based keywords that we would use to describe the products and services that offered. And then that would enable the sales team to reach out to them early and start the sales motion. So even if your marketing engine isn't really working, your inbound, your demand gen, this process with the one-to-many ABM really enables you to kickstart the sales process whilst you're building your engine and ramping up to productivity and speed. Now, the identification is one part, but then there was the personas. So within ABM, tight ABM, one to few, one to one, you definitely don't operate on a persona-led basis. Yes, you need to identify who the committee, the buying committee are, and we've got this on the right-hand panel. But on the left-hand panel, the reason that we have personas is because when you use a one-to-many ABM strategy, much like you would in demand gen, you do have to identify your personas, and you will use persona-based messaging and pain points and that kind of stuff. So, you definitely want to figure out who your personas are and what messaging and problems you can use that will land. Because if you think about one-to-many could be 1,000, 2,000 accounts. What you're trying to do with a blended ABM approach, which is what we put in place here, was, we can identify that there's a really broad number of target accounts that we want. And what we're going to do is we're going to target these accounts and try and make them aware of our business, our brand. And then the companies that start to show interest, we're going to move them into maybe one to few based on verticals, industries, problems, geolocations, whatever that may be. I mentioned on the previous slide that we started to identify the job titles, and we effectively identified 79 traditional sustainability, ESG standard jobs, ESG director, director of ESG, director of sustainability, those kind of jobs. But there were a lot of jobs where the job title had 12 words and something like that. So that made it quite difficult. So what we were doing, we were enriching the contact data from ZoomInfo, and we were doing that automatically. So as companies were being fed into the CRM, we were using using ZoomInfo to enrich the contacts. And then what that actually enabled us to do was target a company, identify all of the members of the buying committee, push those people of those job titles or whoever represents these job titles, committee titles, into the CRM. And then Rollworks was dynamically taking the contact data and then feeding that into its own system and targeting the personas or the committee members on websites where they could be found. So we really started we could really start that brand building awareness program really, really early, but really, really targeted. And as I say, if you're not willing to want to waste budgets in today's market, this was a really apt way of behaving. So what did they go after? Pharma, manufacturing, tech, oil and gas, and utilities. They are hard, complex, not easy to reach businesses, especially when they're $1 billion plus. And we had to come up with fruitful ways to help this company build its own brand, but effectively make the product the best use case within this strategy. So there was a lot to think about. So we talk a lot about tech and tech-enabled ABM when you're talking about the one-to-many approach. And so what we did is we built this chart to show how the tech engaged with each other, but also what did what and when it did it. So obviously from a HubSpot perspective, if you know HubSpot or Salesforce, but in this case HubSpot, they did have Salesforce as well. We've got a CRM which we use to keep the contact details and accounts identified. So we want to make sure we've got all the contact details enriched and the company data enriched. To do that, we use ZoomInfo. So that connected to the CRM because it was doing the enrichment, but also Ocean.io was connected to the CRM. So it could build highly targeted forward lists of companies that they could go and target, from an outbound sales approach, but also to perpetually fill the pipeline with good fit companies for account-based marketing. And as you can see, as we come down, your account identification, outside of manual research, you had Ocean building target account lists, but also Rollworks really here, and I didn't put it in, but it's the intent data of active companies. So that's how that kind of came together. And you've got a really strong, comprehensive way to understand who's in play, when they're in play, and are you activating your target account list on time. So once you've identified your accounts, and as I mentioned, on close won deals, you can build new target account lists, and Rollworks is identifying the account list and the total addressable market in play. From a data enrichment perspective, obviously we've got Zoom info, setting up that company and contact data, and Ocean, just really getting granular on describing and prescribing how all of this tech fulfills the funnel and the activities within the funnel. So this is a great strategy for small teams. You know, for a bigger team, you might not need so much tech, but you know, in smaller teams, investing in the right tech and having the right connections working the right way will pay dividends. And so, you know, this is a prescribed tech stack for us for HubSpot-based ABM. Obviously, marketing automation through HubSpot speaks for itself. You can put all your forms, your landing pages, micro sites, which we'll get to, sequences, workflows, lead scoring. And we'll talk about a little bit about lead scoring as well, because the standard approach to lead scoring doesn't play well with an account-based approach, because typically you're lead scoring a person, and when you're running ABM, you're typically selling to a group of people. So you need more collective KPIs to monitor, rather than did this one person download an ebook, open 4 emails, visit this landing page, look at our pricing page. That's just kind of some of the activity that you'd be measuring, but you wouldn't outreach to someone unless you were confident this person would become your champion at that account. And then you need to start thinking about, how do we enable this champion to communicate our value internally? So for us, ABM's about enabling companies to buy from you. It's not about you selling your product to companies. And so the mindset should switch. But yeah, just to kind of round that off, all your marketing assets would sit on HubSpot. You would use things like documents, so that links going out in emails, you can tell which kind of people are receiving your documents, who's opening them, how far they're typically getting through them. All of that information can be fed back to that copy into the company record and the contact record. And so you're starting to build a really strong understanding of what's landing and what's not. Obviously, with any ad platform, you're going to need a monthly ad budget for creative, because creative wears thin. And so you want to kind of think about that. And then bringing LinkedIn into the mix, you want to make sure that you can run those ads out of HubSpot, but think about, where do we retarget? And retargeting on LinkedIn is actually a really strong play when you're using a platform like Rollworks to target your contacts in the dark funnel, the places you can't see them, the websites they're active on during the day that you just really don't get at. You know, it's not your Facebook, it's not your landing page. And so, you know, it's a robust, comprehensive approach to tech-driven ABM. So what does a campaign strategy look like? Programmatic ads at the very top. So companies that are really unaware of you, or really unaware of the business or the value proposition, whatever that might be, or even companies that are aware of you, but they don't really know what you do. So, you know, they might come past a piece of content, or they might know you. It might be someone that knows you from old, and they know that you've gone to this new company, but they're not really sure what that company is about. It could be any of those things. But effectively, at the very top of the funnel, you're going to run programmatic ads targeted with industry messaging. Our preference is, if you work with businesses that are in multiple verticals, so say like you're selling to just regulated industries, so you know, financial services, pharma, legal, those kind of like industries, if they're your buyers, you might get away with one microsite and just talk about regulated industries. If you were getting broader than that, and you had, you know, for example, I've worked with products before where they sell to in this sort of audience, but one particular business uses the product very differently to the way another vertical uses it, then you would definitely go for vertical-led microsites. So you'd have one for finance, one for pharma, one for law. as opposed to one just for regulated industries. But that builds on top of your inbound strategy. Then when people become aware of you, you're really going to start getting into that persona-led direct messaging, trying to activate those members of the buying committee. You start thinking about segmented ads. This ad should land with the legal people. This ad should land with the salespeople. This should land with the FD. You know, and what you're trying to do is use ads to drive them back to content. Once they know of your business, your next job as a marketer is to get people embedded with your content so that they start building trust with your brand. They start to understand that you're an expert on their field and an expert in the problems that you're trying to solve for them. And so you need to be demonstrating that. And that could be ebooks, webinars, that kind of content, and stuff that you can do on social. And then once they're engaged, you're getting deeper into that, white papers. You might even just have ads that go out to a particular company. So you say, right, at the very, I'd say, bottom of the funnel, we've got this layer, which is just one to many. It's really broad, and it's like just, this is who we are type messaging, or this is how we can help type messaging. And then once they step up into that one to few, which is broad, you can go into either a vertical or an occurrence. So the vertical could be, as I say, finance, pharma, or the occurrence is it's just regulated industries. And then there's a micro site, and we'll get into some of the content that can go into that. So what does that look like? This is flipped on its head. So, typical funnel graphic, one to many, ABM at the top there, running programmatic ads, aimed probably at the C-suite or the decision makers, and really just broad stroke messaging there, because people are totally unaware of who you are. So don't try and land a sale at that point. And also you're trying to activate multiple members of that buying committee. Then you move them into industry microsites. I've talked a little bit about that. Microsite could be a 5-page microsite, or it could just be a comprehensive landing page. Whatever you find lands or suits for those people, that's what I would do. And then you've got above that, once they're engaged with your business, you can move into additional nurturing, which gets more strategic, which is, it could be branded content for that particular account. It could be more tighter messaging around the problems that you're seeing. And so, that becomes really, really strategic at that point. One of the things that we had built, which we'll be demonstrating on a hug next month, is a strategic assessment tool. It's like an evaluation platform that would help their buyers come to an understanding of where they are currently in their strategic approach to ESG in this case. And then what we're trying to do is get people from there to opt into a demo, and finally from that demo into a closed won deal. So we kind of structured our pipeline based on this graphic that you can see. So let me just grab some water. Sorry about that. The next graphic is slightly out of date because Gartner's just updated this, but I want people to kind of get a grip on what a complex B2B buying process looks like. It's not a linear path to here's some content, here's a demo, here's a deal. Typically you're using ABM because the deals are longer, they're more high value, there's more people making decisions to get there. And this is an example of what that could look like. We will update this graphic because I think the new one came out a couple of weeks back, but this just kind of gives you an idea of what's going on. In the company, they're going to be around 70-80% through the research and understanding of what their problem is. Where you need to be is to show that you can understand and diagnose those problems, but you've got to try and do it from afar, and typically through your champion or your deal advocate, whatever that looks like. So start to try and map this out is as much as important to the sales team as it is to the marketing team. And because under an ABM process or an ABM culture is probably the best example of what the words that I would use, you're coming away from being demand gen inbound to actually, we're going to be super smart. We're going to identify, a broad pool of companies that we know that we can identify, that we know we can serve really, really well, because they match the ICP and we can solve these problems for them. And we've identified them. And so you are, you know, as I said, 1,000, 2,000, it doesn't matter, but you're starting to target companies than personas. And so you're becoming very, very much more aligned in learning more about your customer, becoming, you know, customer obsessed is a term I like to say. And then you're building these buyer's journeys around that. And that helps marketing build sales enablement assets, as well as the content that goes out to support all of these stages of the buying process. So I hope that helps. For me, particularly for this particular strategy, because of the number of verticals that the customer was going after, which here we have 5 of them, what we were able to do is say, well, look, we'll have a microsite for each: a pharma, manufacturing, tech, oil and gas, and utilities. But because we like to be able to bring people into that mindset of doing the most with what you've got, the reason that we like customers to be on HubSpot CMS, and you can do the same thing with WordPress, mind you, but you know, WordPress brings its own levels of complexity with needing other agencies to support it on an ongoing basis. And what we know from what our experience with the CMS is that we can build these tools for you so you don't need to come back to us. So we decided to go with the microsite. And once we've designed the microsite, you can just clone the whole microsite, rechange the content for the new vertical, and away you go. So it's almost like build it once, use it twice, thrice, whatever that needs to be for your business ongoing. But also because your marketing team are empowered to have full control of the pages, the modules, the layouts, you know, over time, as you start to learn more and more and more about what lands with your customer, what helps sales close those deals, you'll just change these to affect that. But you do need a jump off point so that you can start to measure, test, and iterate. And so the company in question has around 10 years data in historical data of trends reports of what goes on in, you know, the ESG environment. And so that was being broken down by Power BI. And one of the good things about Power BI is that you can actually install Power BI graphs and data into website pages. So that made that data engaging and interactive. And then on the back of that data, what we were going to do was build a trends report for that vertical, talking about historics, which they could see and play with, but also like, what did we see for the next 12 months or the next sector, and why should they exchange their details and take that away? So we really had quite a powerful first offer for people that entered into this microsite. And the microsite would be hosted within the company website, right? Because the microsite is to show your industry expertise. But ideally, when you're setting up your KPIs and what you should be tracking, you obviously want to make sure that, as well as coming into the microsite, if you've got a pricing page or you've got a product page, as part of the scoring mix, you want to see people coming to do X, Y, and Z on your microsite, download webinars, whatever that looks like, but also visit the main site, book a demo, see the pricing page, look at product pages, and so on. So you kind of get what you're trying to do. This is to show your expertise for that vertical industry, but then you do want to see them coming to check out the rest of your product. So then you would like industry-led video testimonials, you know, use Vidyard, use Loom, use Bonjoro. Bonjoro is a platform I like. It's a new startup. I do like to try and support startups as they're in their journey, but designed to collect video testimonials, which you can then embed onto your website, which only is more impactful, especially if you've got 1 or 2 logos, or you've got at least recognized brands. To get a leader of that business come on camera and talk about you, I think is as powerful as it gets. So, you know, make sure that you get that going on. And case studies, build your case studies around that industry, make them really super specific. Don't use a case study from another industry. It just deviates from the plan and waters down whatever it is you're trying to say. And, you know, if you haven't got the case study, then build it. As long as you've got customers in that vertical, you can go back and look at what you've done for them and try and case study that. So to think about that from the outset, make case studies a way of life at your organization. Then you've got to build specific industry-led webinars. Now, for me, there's ways that you can do this, and you could do this so that you save time. If time isn't a pressure and if budget isn't a pressure, it doesn't matter. But if time and budget is a pressure, then what you could do is you could record a general topic, some general, what I call the middle content, the bit that talks about the specifics, the industry, the trends, and then maybe just film top and tails. So you top in with, hi, this is blah, blah, blah from this company. We're here today to talk about how we help pharma companies, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, edit it into the main content and then tail it off with, well, we hope you enjoyed that. Acme are experts in the pharma industry, and if you want to know more, you know, download our report. And so, like, it's just then becomes maybe, you know, if you've got 5 verticals, you shoot in 1 main piece of content, 5 intros, 5 outros, and then you just edit in that video together. So there are ways that you can keep that cool, but also use recorded webinars. You don't always have to sit there and talk it through all the time. Just have someone sitting there ready for at the end to take Q&A. Microsites, continuing with your industry logos. Now, you don't have to have a separate page of logos. It could be that somewhere in your design you have them on the landing page, you know, the main landing page of the microsite. It's up to you. We're just giving you an idea of what should go into the content. And then other relevant links to content. So this could be stuff you're writing on your blog. This could be stuff where you're sourcing from other experts in the industry. And by experts, I don't mean the competition, you know, people that get out and speak about these things, professors, reports like that, academic reports, anything that adds weight to what you're trying to sell, that compelling pain point. Yeah, just think about where you can source that and how you can keep that relevant. Now, the other thing I like about the HubSpot CMS is when you've run in the blog, you can actually just build a blog module and you could say, right, anything that gets tagged X with including pharmaceuticals or pharma, please also display it here. So it's not that there needs to be additional work. You just start using the smart tagging system to push your content into microsites as well as it sit on your main blog. So just kind of make sure you're using technologies that integrate well, that serve the purpose. And then obviously the book a demo. Everyone's trying to get someone into the conversation with the business. And that's the whole point of ABM, is that marketing are trying to activate people into having conversations with the company that you're working for. Hopefully this is all making sense. At the minute, I can't see if questions are being answered, but we're not too far away. We've got about 6 or 7 more slides. So moving forward on the microsites, what sort of campaign assets do you need? So I always believe you should build a bank of assets, right? Have them out there. In particular use to this particular case here, it's, you know, the industry or vertical microsites. You've got trends report data, you've got downloadable trends report. You want to make sure that you've got content that speaks to each member of the buying committee, FD, procurement, whatever that looks like. Make sure there's something there that helps those people also make full use of this this microsite, because not everything's going to be for everyone. And by that I mean the trends report probably isn't that interesting to the FD. The FD just wants to know the mechanics and the finances, etc., etc. Procurement are probably going to want to know, how does your product or service offering compare to the people around you? So you might want to have that, you know, how to choose your next best ESG platform as an example, and be talking about your peers and how you differentiate from them. Make it easy for you to stand out. The assessment tool, which was a customized tool that we designed and built, and by getting people to take the assessment, what the business then does, it learns a lot more about its target audience. It learns a lot more about what the important things are to them, and then it can use that information to produce more content, tighten up its sales process, and then everything should start to speed up. That's traction, deal velocity, and all those good things. Industry-led webinars, you know, your email sequences, PR is massive, and you should want to leverage your PR. So if you're running PR alongside your ABM, make sure anything that lands really well is pushed into a microsite, or at least that your sales team are using that to further, you know, enhance your reputation within your target audience. Ebooks and white papers stand to reason. Video is great, as well as testimonials. Use it to educate people. Build out solid infographics. I think infographics are always easy to digest and tell a story. People remember, you know, numbers and pictures are what resonate with us more than the written word. So try and get that mindset. We need more visuals, memes, graphics, you know, anything along those lines, and obviously video. And then make sure that alongside ABM, you have a bona fide sales enablement strategy that is designed in tandem with sales and product, so that products start to understand that what they're delivering affects the pipeline, because products are a revenue generating team in my eyes. How is he going to take the approach? So there's account research, there's account activation, there's tech setup, asset creation, content creation, content leverage, so stuff that the business might have already produced itself, you know, the nurturing. You want to build your sales process on HubSpot or Salesforce or Pipedrive, whatever it is you're using. You want to set up your reporting to make sure that you've got that. In terms of what we just talked you through, that's HubSpot and Rollworks. So, you know, make sure you've got your air cover on Rollworks. Align your ads to the stages of the funnel, so that your contact and target audience are served different ads based on where the business sits in the funnel, which is a great way to make sure that they're not seeing the same messaging time and time again. And then obviously the CRM updates. There's a great plugin called Org Hub for HubSpot, which enables you to build the buying committee onto the company record. It sits in the card on the right-hand side, and then you've got like an organizational chart, and you can then work out, do you actually have all of the members of the buying committee and influencing committee in the CRM on a company level? And if you don't, get your Zoom info, get your seamless.io, get your Cognism, make sure you fill all the gaps. And then what's going to happen strategically is that Rollworks is going to pick up all of that information for you and start targeting those people with really top of the funnel messaging. So you start to see how this tech approach plus the strategic approach is going to start enabling this play and building that brand and getting you out there. Obviously, new account identification comes through the pipeline and comes through Ocean and through trend data. The trends data from company search data, from Rollworks and Bombora. And then, you know, make sure you identify and nail your sales process, and then identify the handoff of activated accounts. And when there's a handoff, can I just really be specific? The handoff isn't marketing's finished with this account and now it's sales, because you are jointly responsible for closing out the account. Sales will take it to the finish line, don't get me wrong. But sometimes you still need to be there with them, producing additional content or reports or whatever it is you need to help this deal close. And so that also becomes part of your role. And so what metrics and KPIs should you be looking for? So there's a list here, accounts reached, accounts visited. So we're talking about target accounts reached, but then we're talking about the number of those target accounts that visit your channels, microsites, website, the number of accounts that become engaged. What does that look like? What is the basic parameter you're going to say? We've got 3 page views here. I think that was pricing, product, and you know, one maybe the report or whatever that was, 3 powerful pages. The number of unique visitors from each account, tracking that. Total page views, the number of page views from all accounts reached. So, you know, you can track that at an account level, but also from a campaign level. Future interest. Who says not right now, but we are interested in 3, 6, 9, 12 months? I mean, ESG is a hot topic. I don't think that's probably what that is, but you know, everyone's got their buying cycles, budgets being signed off, etc., etc. The number of accounts targeted, the target account responses. So who from which account has, you know, filled in a form, visited a page, gone to an event, opened some emails, booked a demo, booked a meeting. All these things collectively start adding up, and you get that from lead scoring, but you're looking at this across the account, not just one person from the account. One person showing high interest does not mean that this account is activated. Target opportunities generated, the number of net new opportunities per campaign or per vertical, depends on how you're running your ABM. And then what is the target account value? So how much was the value of the net new opportunities created? I keep saying this, marketing are as responsible for creating opportunity, but also to help sales land them. Sales, your job is always going to be to close accounts, land accounts, expand accounts, retain accounts, upsell accounts. Marketing's job is to help you get there. And so what does that look like? We put some of these together The research, you know, we researched way over 2,500, 3,000 accounts. Number of accounts targeted was still being done, but it was somewhere around 2,200 accounts. We were looking for a 30% response rate, and we were looking for one meeting per activated account. So as a baseline, an activation was a meeting being booked. It wasn't someone going to your website, because anyone can receive an email or whatever it is you do, have a look at your website and never come back. So that's not really a good indicator of how well you're performing. It's an indicator of your messaging is driving people back to your site, microsite, but it's what happens beyond that. So we were looking for a meeting, and if that meeting was just even to say that, you know, they're not interested, at least that meeting took place. There was a 4 million plus pipeline opportunity required, and that at 100K per license was a minimum of 40 opportunities. Now, with so many accounts targeted, and with the intent data, there was never an opportunity for them not to hit 40 open opportunities. And if they don't do that, I would be really surprised and concerned. Counts reached 30%, counts visited 15%. Counts engaged 120. Unique visitors was based on, what was that based on? Oh, the number of accounts, which we didn't have. Total paid views required was in addition of 3. So it was a microsite plus a product page, as there was no pricing page. So downloading an asset, engaging with a demo, those kind of things. That was really it's kind of like a quick whiz through of the one-to-many approach, and hopefully that was valuable. But do you have any questions? Feel free to give me a shout. Any questions? Let me just check the registration for the event and see if there was any questions there. No questions. Can you talk a little bit more? Can we talk about the assessment tool? Yeah, sure. So we first built a customized LMS tool for one of our clients we've been working with for about 4 years, digital transformation project. And they had a professional career development course built, but effectively it was based on the those quizzes where you ask a question, you say 1's least like me, 6 or 10 is most like me. And so what we did, there was dimensions, leadership skills, all these like leadership, strategy, personal development. And then there was a load of questions for each of those dimensions. And depending on how you scored for each dimension, there was a predefined answer. So the way that we built it is between 1 and 2, you scored low. Between 2.1 and 4, you scored in the middle, and then 4.1 to 6, you'd scored in a high bracket. And the system then had a set of predefined answers that would be sent to you, and with advice on how you as a leader could take this information and go forward. Could be links to courses, all sorts of things, but everything designed to talk about what they could do to move themselves forward. And if you take that kind of same approach, most companies, when they're using ABM, they can use Medic, they can use whatever they're using, these qualifying processes. But ultimately, my understanding is that you're consultative selling. So, you're trying to establish root causes of problems, really dig into what's going on for them. Everyone says dig into the pain. I mean, just to be as common as everyone else. But so we sort of looked at it and we were like, okay, so look, if you're going to buy a tool, firstly, you want to find out how strong their strategy is, how invested they are in that, what sort of budget goes into that. These are questions that that you would ask in a sales cycle. And so why wouldn't you build that into an assessment tool, but instead of thinking about it as a lead gen tool, which it indirectly is, but if you go in there with the idea that it's either a pre-qualification tool for the sales process or it's a lead gen tool for marketing, you both slightly take away the core functionality of like an evaluation tool. The idea being is, let's just talk about it in terms of us as an agency, right? Things that we want to know about tech companies, like, you know, performance. If it's for marketing, if it was a marketing evaluation tool, we'd want to know about website performance, strategy, team size, budgets, all those things. And then we'd go, right, so each of those is a dimension. And within those dimensions, what do we need to know as an agency? And we just go back to a list. We've got a predefined list of questions we actually ask during the sales process anyway. But those questions are, by design, are to help us understand where the business is and where obviously we could potentially provide a solution, if at all. So therefore we could then put that into an evaluation tool and provide answers to you based on how well you score for each dimension. So for example, if you have HubSpot in place and for marketing automation, you're not scoring well for automation, nurturing and stuff like that, it makes it apparent that where the problem is and then what you can prescribe and links and stuff like that. And so that, whilst that's kind of a basic way of explaining it, that's what it looks like. And to be fair, I do have it somewhere, right? Let me just find it. I've got it on a subdomain. So bear with me a second. Okay. All right. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to come off of recording. So I'm going to stop recording and I'm going to share my screen. So stop recording.